Well, let's talk about Spurs now, because I think it's fair to say, JJ, that this game is, it says a lot about Arsenal, but it probably says more about Spurs at the moment. Why do you think that is?
Well, I don't know if we learned that much about Spurs from this game other than what we already knew, is that they struggle to create because they rely an awful lot on wing-backs being part of the forward line, and then everyone else is meant to defend in a certain way. And I think if you don't get results and you're playing with a very demanding manager like Antonio Conte with a very high... Like, he wants a lot of high-intense runs, he wants you to do a lot of off-the-ball work, in the hope that that then grinds out a result and you can get forward from that. But you need really good wing backs. Like, they want to sign people like Pedro Porro. It sounds like he's going to be so good, that guy. Get him in now. It's great signing if they can get him. Or Denzel Dumfries. That make a huge difference because they'd get another high quality right wing back. So they've got Matt Doherty. He's fine. And then like Arsenal were able to play their exact normal system, but then just drop Saka back into a wing back role when they need to have the 5 to cover them. So then that negates what Spurs want to do going forward. Heung-Min Son's not been the same player this season. Kane is having a quietly amazing season, scoring loads of goals. Kulusevski's back, so that's where most of their creativity comes from.
Yeah.
But if you can lock him down, and they seem to, there's occasional moments when he'll make things happen because he's so good.
It's also he's got the issue with being a left-footed player on the right-hand side, that when he wants to play those crosses in, it's quite easy. It's interesting to watch Arsenal defending him, trying to show him down the line.
I think you can definitely get so what teams will do in the week before a game match is they'll have one day they'll arrange a match between their first team and either the second 11 or the youth team, who are set up exactly as the opposition will, and you know how Spurs play.
Yeah.
There's very little variation in how they play. It just depends on how well the individuals do. But the hope for Conte is that it's defensively solid and it gives them a threat on the counter. But you see, Arsenal's defensive line was a little bit deeper in this game, just to stop the players who are really fast getting behind, as did in the game that they won 3-1, I think it was, early in the season. And I think what you see with Spurs is that players just aren't responding as much to what it is they have to do. Like, when you look at Arsenal, cohesive, they're all aligned, and what they're doing is quite fun and it's working. So they're playing like good football, really high tempo, one-touch passes, and it's really nice, lots of movement. Spurs don't really do that. It's all very predictable and goes through the certain ways, but does work with good players. Like, it's proven. Conte knows how to win league titles. He's done it before.
The key is the good players, though, isn't it? I mean, like we had this conversation last night, John, with Conte. We've seen him in the Premier League before, as JJ says. He's won it before. He's won it with arguably better squads. I mean, is this Conte? Does he need the players to be of a certain degree in order for his approach to be effective?
I think that it's partly that. But I also think that a lot of it comes down to the league, and it comes down to what we're talking about in terms of pressing. So we talked about how when Arsenal came out in the first half, they were pressing really high, aggressively. And it means that you can really stop Spurs from getting the ball into those areas, namely Kulusevski, where they're getting a huge amount of really incisive progression. If you can stop them doing that, then Spurs don't have anything. So they generated very little in the first half. They were the second goal comes from a kick from the goalkeeper, I think, which Harry Kane challenges for. Arsenal win, and then the ball comes back and Arsenal, obviously it's a really nice goal from Erdegaard, but it's from basically Arsenal being able to make sure that Spurs can only get the ball into those advanced areas in really inefficient ways, and then they capitalise on that. In the second half, Arsenal's press drops off a little bit, and then suddenly Spurs are able to get the ball in much more efficient and effective ways to Kulusevski, and that's when the problems start emerging. And I think flipping that on its head, I think the issue that Spurs have is that they're similar to Arsenal in that or the way that Arsenal played in this game, in that they have a really good aggressive high press at times, or they have a low block, and they don't really have much in between. And I think the problem is that regardless of whether or not it's worked in the past for Conte, being able to sit in a low block and then hit in the counter, versus having periods where you can press high and aggressively and win the ball back. The issue for me is more that he needs to have some kind of middle ground where the game isn't just simply losing control, or he's not losing control of the game. So
a mid block, may I suggest?
Yeah. A mid block is, I think, is the way to go here. And there's certain teams this year, like Fulham, for example, a great example of a team who are able to mid block really well, and it allows them to control the games enough for them to get upside when they need it, and then to not lose control when they don't. And
let me tell you, Fulham have mid-blocked their way to 6th place.
Yeah.
Did you know that? They're in 6th.
They're
right
really
now.
good to watch as well. They're playing nice football.
Well, we'll come to talk about them. Actually, we won't. We'll talk about them another time. Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with Conte, then it feels to me like, because in the Premier League the out of possession stuff is so is so good for the opposition. You really have to be able to control games against everyone. Even the teams at the bottom are able to control games, and so we've seen Spurs move from this sort of situation where they want to be low block and counter, but then teams are able to actually stop them from scoring in those ways. And so it's only when Spurs are coming out in the second half, when they're down goals, then sort of really going aggressive, that they're able to turn things around. So I think with Conte, I think maybe his style of play doesn't quite have so much upside in, one, the modern game, but two, maybe the Premier League.
Well, I think it's not even just getting like better players. I mean, obviously is, but it's getting the right players to play the way you want to, or the right characters. And Conte always seems frustrated. He seems to realise that the ceiling is about 4th or 5th for what he's got, unless they invest heavily. And I can imagine it's very frustrating being a Spurs fan, continually knowing that you're just never going to be able to compete with everyone else around you, but you sort of are. And then you watch teams like Newcastle fly up above. Obviously, they have a lot more funding in the background going on. And then if you look at, again, comparing the two clubs, Arsenal and Spurs, like Arsenal waited with Arteta, were patient, and the club are aligned. So what Arteta wants to do is in line with what Edu was doing. They didn't bother spending more on Mudryk because it didn't align with what the vision was. That's exactly what they do. Spurs don't have that, seem to have that, again, the cohesion between the management and what the actual club wants to do. And you can sort of see it play out in the pitch.
Fans very unhappy at the moment.
Yeah, they would because you're always stuck, and it's just like if you're a supporter and you like put a lot of what your identity is on who you support, and that's what your weekends are spent doing and your weeknights watching this team, and they never go anywhere. It's just pointless. The point of life.
Indeed, what is
you
the
just
point
sort of
of
trip
life?
along doing nothing. You're never going to achieve anything. It's all right. And the thing I was going to finish off with, but you look at Arsenal versus Spurs, is that Arteta, that all worked with Arteta. Spurs sort of had that with Pochettino. They had that, and then it didn't work anymore for Pochettino. And then they got rid, and now they're just sort of stuck.
What was that list of things you just said? Tripping along, not really doing anything.
Yeah.
What were the other ones?
Not going to achieve anything.
Yeah. That's you, listener. That's you. What he's just said. Think about it. Think about your life. Yeah?
But if you start doing it today, you can achieve it all.
Nonsense. Welcome to John and JJ's business school.
This is one of the chapters.
This is, yeah.
That's right. If you start now, you will have started.
Don't start later, start now.
I think start tomorrow. It's
no,
fine.
start now.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.